What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel. Now you guys know it's very rare that I would ever make a video on a Saturday, but I have a deck profile for you guys and it is my updated Dark Magician deck. This is one that took me well over a few months to build, and it's all because of the fact that it's actually because of the fact that we had to get we had to wait for the new for the new Dark Magician support to come out, or rather to be put on Nexus, and we were actually finally able to get it. So there's only a few cards that there's only like one, two. There's only a few cards that I am using. The extra deck is the exact same. The side deck is a little bit different. The main deck is about the same. Just had to take some. Just had to take some stuff out. Put in some other cards, and just it took months. So what's cool about this version is that this version relies more so on the combo of Dark Magical Circle and Eternal Soul. If you're able to keep those two cards intact, you essentially just win the duel easily. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. And if you guys do enjoy this deck profiling and you guys want more in the future, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Links are down below. And for fan mail, if you guys want to send fan mail, my address will also be in the description as well. So let's get straight into it. First up, we have the most obvious 3 copies of Dark Magician. If you're not playing this card, if you're not playing Dark Magician, if you're not running this card in your deck, you're not playing Dark Magician. Just plain simple. It's like the main card you need for this deck. And I do have three different artworks. I've got the I can't even speak. The Arcana Dark Magician, the starter deck Yu-Gi-Oh Dark Magician, the OG artwork, or actually one of the OG artworks, and then one from the Dark Side of Dimensions, which all 3 artworks look amazing, absolutely beautiful. Next up, the one Red Eyes Black Dragon. I have this. I decided to keep this in the deck for 2 reasons. One is because that it's level 7. You can actually use it to go into cards like Big Eye, Master of Blades, even also Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, where you can actually detach Red Eyes and resummon it back to the field in attack position, and you're able to just go off from there. So that's why I only decided to run 1. Plus we also have Red Eyes Dark Drago. So yeah. Next up, we have the one Buster Blader. This is only in here to summon Dark Paladin. If you're able to summon Dark Paladin, you're pretty much just golden at that point. Next up, I'm actually running two copies of a new card that, truth be told, you only need 2. You only need 2, and I'll explain why right now. It is known as Chronicle Magician. This is actually one of the new V-Jump promo cards that will be released sometime. Sometime in the next several months. But if you guys have never seen this card before, or if you guys don't remember me talking about it on the channel, it is a 7-star dark spellcaster with 2,500 attack and defense, and the effect reads as follows: if a monster or monsters with 2,500 original attack and or defense is normal or special summon, you can normal special summon to your field, except during the damage stab. You can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. If this card is special summon, you can target one Dark Magician or Blue Eyes by Dragon you control. It gains 2,500 attack and defense until the end of this turn, and you can only use each effect once per turn. The reason why I only have this at 2 is because this card is more so of a last resort type of deal, where if you're able to if you're able to make a board where you can just have an OTK on board, then this is where Chronicle Magician comes into play. Because if you made a board with, say, I'll say the Dark Magicians, and I'll say Dark Magician, Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. Let's just say that. In this sense, you would go Dark Magicians, normal summon the Kaiku, activate a card like, say, Monster Reborn, resummon the Dark Magician, activate Chronicle Magician's effect, special summon him in defense, target the Dark Magician. Its attack becomes 5,000. So 5,000, 28. That's 5,800. Kaiku makes 18. That's well over 9,000 damage on board. If you're able to make that, you can actually make that with just Chronicle Magician alone, which is actually pretty crazy. Not only that, but funny enough, this also works with Blue Eyes with Blue Eyes as well. So I may incorporate this into that. I don't know, but that's the only reason why you're running 2 copies, and you only need 2 copies because you don't want to see this in your opening hand unless if you have game. You don't want to see this card in your hand. If you see multiple copies in your hand, it's gonna be a break, and you're not gonna be able to go full. And you're not gonna be able to go full combo to go into your fusions or your Exceeds plays because of the fact you have multiple copies. Yes, it is an incredible card because you're able to give Dark Magician extra attack. But funny enough, because that Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight counts as Dark Magician, its attack would go up to 5,500, which is insane, which is really good. Next up, we have 2 copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician. This is actually a really excellent card because it has 2 effects, so it can be 1 effect for each copy. The first effect is basically where has the Cyber Dragon effect at the cost of discarding 1 card from your hand, and not only that, but you're also able to Rhoda out Dark Magician to your hand. And not only that, but the second effect but not only that, sorry, I can't even speak. It's like pretty early in the morning. Anyway, the second effect says during damage cal, if your other Dark Spellcaster monsters battles an opponent's monster as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand or face the field to the grave. That monster you control gains 2,000 attack and defense during that damage cal only. So it basically just ensures that you're able to deal a pretty decent amount of damage to your opponent. So this is 1 card that you could definitely have multiple copies of in your hand. Even if you do, you're still able to go off, and normal summon cards like Magician's Rod go into Circle, activate Circle's effect, potentially get out of the Eternal Soul. You can just go off, go nuts with this deck. Next up, we have the 1 Dark Magician Girl. This is essentially the break of the deck, but what's cool about this is that with a card like, say, the Dark Magicians, it has an effect where it says if this card is destroyed, it doesn't matter how it gets destroyed, you can special summon Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl from your hand, deck, and or graveyard. So not only could it be a Cyber Ref system, it could also be a special summon of sorts from the deck, or it could be a Monster Reborn. So it's 3 different versions it's three different summoning mechanics in one card, which is pretty cool. And not only that, Dark Magician Girl can also be used to go into Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight or go into your Link plays as well, which is pretty cool. Next up, we have 2 copies of Palladium Oracle Mana. This is actually one of the more better versions of Dark Magician Girl. This card works so much better than Mahad, and the reason why I say that is because Mahad has the effect where it says when you draw this card, you can reveal this card, special summoning from your hand. If this card battles a dark monster, its attack is doubled. During the damage step, only if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon Dark Magician from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Mana has the effect where it's more of a protection card, if you will, where the effect reads, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a spellcaster or monster you control, and no other cards, while this card is in your hand or grave, as a quick effect, you can special summon this card. You can only use this effect once per turn. Level 7 or higher spellcasters or monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon Dark Magician Girl from your hand, deck, or graveyard. So mainly you're using it to protect your level 7 and higher spellcasters, which, technically speaking, Dark Magician the Dragon Knight counts as a spellcaster, which is pretty hilarious. Which is actually pretty hilarious. So this card is so much better than Mahad, because Mahad has, as I mentioned, has the effect where in order for you to use him, you have to draw him out. So it's kind of similar to rank up Magic the 7th one, which is pretty intriguing. But still being able to have an extra body on board when an opponent's effect is triggered, it's just that good. It's just that damn good. Next up, we have the one copy of Kaiku, the Ghost Destroyer. The only reason why I have one is because I didn't have enough room for a second copy. But what's cool about Kaiku is that it has the effect where it says when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target up to 2 monsters in their grave, banish those targets. Your opponent cannot banish cards from either graveyard. So not only is this a double call by the grave, but it's also sort of like a Necro Valley of sorts, which is really cool, where your opponent can't banish cards, or actually not Necro Valley, Artifact Lancia. It's like double call. It's basically double call by the grave, Artifact Lancia of sorts, which is really cool. Next up, and then to round out the monsters, we have triple copies of Magician's Rod. Basically, this card just allows you to get out dark and any card that has Dark Magician in its name or in its text, which is really good. And then to round out the monsters, and you guys are probably gonna hate me, or are probably gonna post in the comments asking me why. Here's my reason. I am running 2 copies of Magic Karibo and only 1 Magician's Souls. The reason being is because of this. Magic Karibo has the effect where it reads, during the main or battle phase, if you took damage by battle or an opponent's card effect, this turn, as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your deck or grave. If a face-up spellcaster, monster, or monsters you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can add this card from your grave to your hand. You can only use each effect once per turn. What's cool about this is that this basically acts as a much more revamped version of Magician's Souls. The only difference is that you don't have to send Dark Magician to the graveyard to summon it. Now, the reason why I'm running the 1 copy of Magician's Souls is because of the field spell that I have in the deck, Magician's Salvation, which I'll explain that card as we once we get into the spells. Another thing too is that Magic Karibo is basically it's basically a floater. It's an excellent floater. It can float from your hand into the grave and then roll reversal, which is really, really insane. Magician Souls, it does not float. It's not a floater. It's more of an extender. Plus, it's a pot of greed. Basically it's a +1. It's a +1 minus. It's a +2 -2. Basically, where you send this and salvation to the grave, and you get to draw 1. That's it. So it's not the best play, but still you're able to get. But if you're able to get out cards like say Red Eyes Fusion, or let's say Dark Magical Circle, could be a nice thing to see. Nice thing to see. Moving on into the spells. First up, we have the Red Eyes Fusion, mainly for obviously Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. We have the Eye of Timaeus for Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, or Dark Magician Girl the Dragon Knight, which is pretty cool. Which is actually really cool. The Fang of Critias. Yes, I am actually running Destruction Dragon in. Yes, Destruction Dragon is back. And it's just so good. It is so good. Being able to deal your opponent damage off of the effects of Destruction Dragon, it is absolutely insane. By the way, shout outs to Starbucks for this triple shot. Not sponsored, just this card. This is just incredible. There we go. And then next up we have the Claw of Hermos for the Red Eyes Sword. Then we've got the lone copy of Monster Reborn. You gotta run Monster Reborn to go into your plays especially with Chronicle Magician. That one card alone can come a long way. Next up, we have triple copies of Soul Servant. I believe in the last build, I was running only 2. But I decided to bring it up to 3, because of the fact that you can actually take cards from your graveyard and put them on top of your deck, and then trigger off the effect again to get the plus out of it, which is incredible. Which is actually really good. Next up, we have the 3 copies of Secrets of Dark Magic. It's basically polymerization. Don't really have to explain. And then to round out the rest of the spells, we have triple copies of Dark Magical Circle. This card not only acts as like a pot of duality of sorts, but it also acts as a piece of removal on board, which is incredible. So you can target pretty much any card that your opponent may have, whether it's face up or face down, or whether it's a monster, or whether it's a back row, a field spell. It instantly gets banished, and if your opponent does not have an out to this card, you essentially just win. You essentially just win the duel, and it's pretty much just GG at that point. And then to round out the spells, we have triple copies of Wonder Wand, excuse me, in which you're only using this card for either the Dark Magician or the Magician's Rod. And the reason being I chose to equip this to the Rod is because of the fact that once you've used up the Rod's search effect, you equip 1/1 onto the Rod. It gains 500 attack, but you get to use it mainly for its second effect, where it says you can send both. Where it says, if you control the equipped monster and this card, you can send both to the grave, draw 2 cards. So it's essentially a pot of greed for the deck, which is really cool. And then the Magician's Salvation, only 1 copy though. This is actually one of the new cards that came out of the 2021 Tin of Ancient Battles, which I actually have 4 tins of. I plan on opening up 2 of them at some point. On the hopes to get cards like True Light and whatnot. I think those are like the only ones that I'm after the most, honestly. And also Zeus as well. But if you guys have never seen Salvation before, or never saw me do a video where I talked about him, the effect reads, when this card is activated, you can set one Eternal Soul directly from your deck. If you normal or special summon Dark Magician or Dark Magician card except during the damage step, you can target one of those monsters, special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician girl from your grave with a different name than that monster. You can only use this effect once per turn. You can only activate one salvation per turn. So, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's sort of like Monster Reborn, but you're only using this card to set Eternal Soul if you have yet to if you don't have it in your opening hand, but you have Salvation. That's where this comes into play. Plus, once you've used up the effect, you can just go ahead and trigger you can just go ahead and you can just go ahead and activate Soul's effect. Send, I'll say, Dark Magician Girl to the graveyard. Special summon this card in defense. Trigger the effect. Send Salvation to the grave. You get to draw cards out of it, which is pretty cool. Moving on into the traps. There's only 2, 4, 6, 8. There are only 8 traps in the deck. First up, we have the 1 copy of Magician Navigation. You're only using it for the effect that's in the graveyard, where you can banish it and target a face-up spell or trap that your opponent may has on the field, and negates its effects until the end of the turn, which is not too bad. But you can also use it to summon out Dark Magician from your hand, and then summon a level 7 or lower Dark Spellcaster from your deck, which, again, Dark Magician, Apprentice Illusion Magician, you're pretty much just okay from there. Next up, we have 2 copies of Destined Rivals. This is basically your Dark Ruler No More of sorts, which is really cool. And this was one of the cards that came out of the 2020 Tin of Lost Memories from last year, and the effect reads, if you control Blue-Eyes White Dragon or Dark Magician, negate the effect of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of the turn, and you can only activate 1 Destined Rivals per turn. So again, it acts as like a Dark Ruler No More of sorts, which is really cool. This is actually a lot more, this works just as fine as Dark Ruler No More. It even works just as good as Forbidden Droplet. But if you don't have access to Forbidden Droplet, and you're playing Blue Eyes or Dark Magician, this card will really do it justice for you. Next up, we have the 1 Ring of Destruction, again with Critias. You can just summon the Destruction Dragon and be able to inflict damage to your opponent. Absolutely incredible. Next up, we have 2 Eternal Souls. I decided to cut it down to 2. Because I wanted to make room for the Magician's Souls. And what's cool about this is that it can easily float back into the deck, and you're able to draw it out off of the effects of a card like Soul Servant, which is nuts, absolutely nuts. It does have a downside where if it gets destroyed, where if this card leaves the field, all monsters you control do get destroyed, which is unfortunate. But what's cool about this is that Red Eyes Dark Dragoon cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is insane. So if you're able to have Dragoon on the field, you still have a chance to win, which is pretty crazy. And then to round out the main deck, we have 2 copies of Solemn Warning, which it's Solemn Warning, you don't have to explain what it does. Moving on into the extra deck. First up are the Link monsters. There's only 2 in the extra deck. We have the one Witch's Apprentice and then the 1-star usual Skulljack. We Witch's Apprentice has a really cool has the effect where it requires 2 dark monsters, so it can be it's pretty generic, and it says all dark monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense. Also, light monsters on the field lose 400 attack and defense. So the only other than Palladium Oracle Mana, you're essentially just running mostly dark. Mostly dark. There's only a couple that so other than Palladium Oracle Mana, the only other light that you have is actually Ghost Ogre, which is in the side, which is pretty cool. Which I'll explain that once we get into the side. If let's see here. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target a dark monster in your grave, add it to your hand. Not only is this like a sort of like a black pendant of sorts, but it acts as a sort of like a recycler as well, which is pretty cool. Which is pretty cool. But funny enough, most people would never send this card to the graveyard because they don't want to see you gain the extra card advantage off of this card, nor do they want to see you get card advantage off of Saryuja, because it gains effects based on how many materials you used to summon this card. So if you used up at least two, then monsters that are normal or special summoned to a zone that he points to gain 300 attack and defense, which is pretty cool. If you used up at least three, then you're able to just automatically special summon a monster from your hand, which could literally be anything. And funny enough, it acts as like a cyber dragon, which is pretty insane. But if you used up four materials, then you're able to draw 4 cards and place 3 from your hand into the bottom of the deck in any order. So it's kind of like a graceful. So it's kind of like a graceful charity on steroids, which is pretty funny. So yeah, definitely run Saryuja. The side deck though, once we get into the side, it is pretty fucking loaded. Although because of the fact that the main deck is fine the way it is, there's only going to be maybe a few cards that you'll probably side out, which I'm sure mostly it'll be cards like Souls, Salvation, Navigation, just because just because of the fact that you don't really want to see them in your opening hand, and you're most likely also going to side out one of the rods and replace them with one each of the hand traps that are in the side. Maybe a Mistaken Arrest, maybe a couple of traps as well. So yeah, that's something to definitely consider. But moving on into the Exceeds monsters, first up we have Abon High Magician, which has a rather unique effect, and it has an interesting effect. But the effect reads, while this card has Exceeds material, you can activate a quick play spell or a trap card from your hand during your opponent's turn by detaching one Exceeds material from this card at activation. So in this sense, if your opponent, if you have Ebon High Magician on the field, and you have a card like say Distant Rivals, once they start their plays, you can just go ahead and activate the effect, activate his effect, detach the material, activate Distant Rivals, and they essentially just cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh, which is absolutely nuts, absolutely nuts. It actually has a second effect where it reads, if this card exceeds, if this Exceeds summon card is destroyed by battle and sent to your grave, or if this exceeds summon card you control is sent to your grave by an opponent's card effect, you can spell summon a dark spellcaster monster from your hand or deck. Then you can destroy one card on the field. So not only is this, not only does this have the effect of Machiora the Destructor on steroids, but it's also a Cyber Rev system plus a MST or a Trap Hole, which is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Next up, we have a rather interesting card, but it actually works. It is known as number 28, Titanic Moth. You guys are wondering, why am I running this card? Here's the thing. You have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 level 7 monsters. This card only requires 2, which it's easy for you to bring out those monsters because of the fact that you have cards like it's because of the fact that you have cards like Saryuja and Rod and Souls that you're able to use that you're able to summon out a couple of monsters right off the bat. The effect reads, if you control no other monsters, this card can attack directly, but when it does so, using this effect, the battle damage inflicted to your opponent is cut in half. So, because that its attack is 2400, your opponent will only be taking 1200, which is still fairly decent. It's fairly decent. When this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can detach one exclusive material from this card and inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. So it acts as like a it acts as a monster version of the spell Torpedo Takedown, where Torpedo Takedown has the effect where it reads, target one water exceeds monster you control, detach one material from it, inflict 400 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand, and if you do, that monster gains attack equal to the damage inflicted until the end of the turn. You can banish this card and a water exceeds monster from your grave, draw 2 cards, which is pretty cool, which honestly is really fucking insane. So again, Titanic Moth, absolutely incredible, absolutely broken, being able to deal even more damage to your opponent on top of the battle damage that number 28 inflicted to your opponent is just absolutely insanity. Absolutely crazy. Next up, we have Ebon Illusion Magician, which is absolutely crazy. The effect reads, you can also exceed summon this card by using a rank 6 spellcaster exceeds you control as the material. I don't think there is anything that can work. I think maybe... Naruto? Yeah. Or actually... maybe Naruto the Moral Leader would probably work out, but I don't think this card is any good. So Naruto reads, once per turn when your opponent activates a spell or trap card as a quick effect, you can detach a material from this card and negate the activation and destroy it. Yeah, I mean, it's not too bad, but it's better not to use a card like Naruto, unless if you wanted to go into a rank 7 play with that card. But still it's not too bad. But it's easier to bring out Ebon Illusion Magician just because of the fact that you have multiple ways to bring out multiple level 7 monsters. It's fine the way it is, but let's see here. You can also exceed some of this card by using a rank 6 spellcaster exceed you control as the material, and you're able to just transfer the materials, and the exceeds monster itself becomes a attachment to this one card as well, which is pretty cool. Once per turn, you can detach one exceeds material from this card. It's supposed to summon a spellcaster normal monster from your hand or deck. Again, Cyber Dragon. It's a Cyber Dragon effect, which is really cool. When a spellcaster type monster declares an attack, you can target one card your opponent controls and banish it. So not only is this a, excuse me, not only does this have the Cyber Dragon effect, but you're able to just automatically just pop cards from your opponent's field and just banish them right off the bat, which is absolutely insane, absolutely good. It's an incredible card, incredible card. Next up, we have arguably one of the more powerful Xyz monsters that's in the extra, and that's number 11, Big Eye. Why is it powerful? Because it's a brain control. You detach a material from this card and take control of one of your opponent's monsters. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. The only downside is that Big Eye cannot launch an attack once he activated its effect. So it is unfortunate, but still, it's still pretty cool. Next up, we have actually a really cool card. It is number 74, Master of Blades. It is a very incredible card because this acts as like a solemn judgment of sorts, where the effect reads, when a card or effect is activated that targets this face-up card, as a quick effect, you can detach one material from this card, negate the activation, and destroy it. Then you can destroy one card on the field. So what's cool is that if this card were to be targeted for a card effect, you can just negate the activation and then just pop cards on just pop a card on the field. So it's like solemn judgment removal of sorts, which is really cool. And then of course, to round out the Xyz monsters, we have the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. Not only does this act as a monster reborn for Red Eyes Black Dragon, but it has the effect where it reads cannot be destroyed by card effects while it has Xyz material. While this card has Xyz material, each time your opponent activates a card or effect, inflict 500 damage to your opponent immediately after it resolves. So, yeah. So basically, your opponent will be dealt damage every time they activate a card or an effect, no matter what the card or the effect is. They're going to be dealt damage every single turn. And if you're able to protect this card with cards like, say, Solemn Warning, and also cards from the side, you essentially just win the duel. Right then and there, which is pretty funny. Moving on into the fusions to round out the extra, we have the Red Eyes Black Dragon Sword. This card is just absolutely nuts. What's funny about this is that once you equip this card to a monster on the field, it gains 500 attack for each dragon that is on the field and in both graveyards. Plus, it gains an additional 1,000 just for holding the sword, which is absolutely hilarious. So not only is this a Axe of Despair, but it also has the effects of Dark Paladin as well, which is hilarious. Because Dark Paladin has the effect where it says it gains 500 attack for each dragon on the field and in the graveyard, meaning both yours and your opponent. Which is funny, which is absolutely hilarious. Next up, we have Dark Magician Girl, the Dragon Knight. This is basically your removal, which is pretty cool. It has the effect where it reads, once per turn, as a quick effect, you can send a card from your hand to the grave, target a face-up card on the field, and destroy. So it's a nice little piece of removal. Plus, it's a 2,600 buddy on board. You can't go wrong with that. Cannot go wrong with that. Next up, we have Destruction Dragon. This card basically is your big removal card for the whole deck, where it reads, once per turn, you can target a card your opponent controls, destroy it. Then, if it was a monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original attack. So if you were to target, like, say, Borderlord Savage Dragon, and you're able to destroy it, your opponent gets dealt 3,000 damage, which would help you go even further with your plays, especially if you were able to give Dark Magician an extra 2,500 attack off of the effects of Chronicle Magician, Dude. Come on. Come on. Come on. You cannot go wrong with that. You cannot go wrong with that. Next up, we have the Dark Magicians, which actually is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool effect, which was actually pretty cool because the effect reads: once per turn, if a spell, trap, or effect was activated, except during the damage step, you can draw one card. Then, if it was a spell or trap, you can set it. And if it was a trap or a quick play spell, you can activate it this turn. If this card is destroyed, you can special summon both Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl from the hand, deck, or graveyard. So if you have both in the grave, it acts as a double Monster Reborn, which is absolutely nuts. And you're able to draw even more cards with each passing turn that this card remains on the field, which is absolutely nuts. Next up, we have Dark Paladin. Not only does this card gain extra attack for each dragon that's on the field and in both graveyards, but it has the effect where it reads: when a spell card is activated as a quick effect, you can discard one card, negate the activation, and destroy. So this acts as like a sort of like a Solemn Judgment, but for spells. So I guess you could say kind of like an Imperial Order, so to speak. But the downside to this is that it says the first thing it says is that it says must be fusion summon, meaning you cannot use cards like Waking the Dragon to summon it, which is unfortunate, but it's still a pretty cool card. Next up, and then to round out the extra deck, we have Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, which not only does this act as a Dark Magician when it's on the field or in the graveyard, but it has the effect where it says your opponent cannot target spells or traps you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, meaning if you're able to have this on the field, you can use this card to protect every single card, every single spell or trap that you have on the field. That includes Eternal Soul, Dark Magical Circle, Soul Servant, anything, pretty much any of your spells. Any of your spells and traps, they cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects, which is insane. And then to round out the extra deck, we have Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. This acts as a double destruction dragon, where you're able to inflict damage to your opponent equal to your opponent's monster's original attack. And you can actually do this twice, depending on how many normal monsters you use. And because that you're running Red Eyes Fusion, you're most likely going to be doing that. You're most likely going to be using Red Eyes Black Dragon and Dark Magician, which is pretty cool. Plus, not only that, it's also a Solemn Judgment as well, which is pretty insane. Moving on into the side deck, we actually have two copies of some of the more better Ghost Sister hand traps in the format. We have two Ash Blossom, two Ghost Ogre, and two Ghost Belle. Ash Blossom focuses on monsters that are being special summoned from the special summoned from the deck, adding cards from the deck to the hand, or sending cards from the deck to the graveyard. Ghost Ogre focuses on the back row, especially when the back row was already faced up on the field. And then Ghost Belle focuses on cards that were being summoned from the grave, being added from the grave to the hand, or being banished from the grave. So these are probably the three most powerful Ghost Sister hand traps in the format right now, because of that reason. And funny enough, they're also tuners, so you can actually use them to go into your synchro plays if you had any. Truth be told, the side deck has three synchros in the side. The first is Dragocytos, Corrupted Nether Soul Dragon, and you're wondering, how am I able to bring out these synchros? You'll find out here in just a moment. But this card has a cool effect where it says cannot be destroyed by battle. When this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you can activate this effect. This card can make a second attack on an opponent's monster in a row. So it acts as like a Cyber Twin Dragon of sorts, which is really cool. The second effect is where it really kicks in. The second effect is where this card really becomes strong. During your standby phase, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack becomes half its current attack, and if it does, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the lost attack. So Say for example, you target, I'll say, your opponent's five-headed link dragon. Let's just say that. Its attack would go from 5,000 to 2,500, and your opponent would take 2,500 damage, which is insane, absolutely insane. And it's a 4,000 body it's a 4,000 beat stick on board, which is just broken on its own. Next up, we have another really powerful card. People intend to think that this card sucks. It does not. What am I talking about? I am talking about Ally of Justice Decisive Armor. It has 3 different effects based on the board, based on your opponent's board state, if you will. So you can select a card your opponent controls and destroy it. Select one set card. Sorry, your opponent controls and destroy it, which could be a MST of sorts. Send a card from your hand to the grave to destroy all spells and traps your opponent controls. So it acts as like a Harpy's Feather Duster at the cost of sending a card from your hand to the grave, which you can actually send Magic Karibo to the grave and then get its effects later on and bounce it back to the hand. So it's as if you never even discarded a card from your hand. And then the third effect is where it's really hilarious. Send all cards in your hand to the grave. Look at your opponent's hand and send all light monsters in their hand to the grave and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the total attack of the monsters sent to the graveyard. So if your opponent has a total of 8,000 attack worth of monsters, that's essentially game, which is hilarious. And then another card that is actually really good. It is really good in this deck, and is known as Baronnet de Fleur, which is absolutely nuts. It basically acts as like a Solemn Judgment, which is really good. So you're not using it for its second effect. You're mainly using this card for its first effect, where it's a Solemn Judgment, which is pretty cool. Moving on into the rest of the side deck, there's only 3 copies of only 2 cards in the side. So we have 3 Mistaken Arrest. This card basically acts as a sort of like a disruption where neither you nor your opponent can add cards from their deck to your hand to the hand except by drawing them. So you have to draw out your cards, otherwise it's useless. And then Waking the Dragon is the reason why I've got the 3 synchros, is because of Waking the Dragon. They're actually Waking the Dragon targets, which is hilarious, and it's just that damn good. So overall, I think this deck is absolutely busted with the effects of Chronicle Magician, Magic Karibo, with the extra deck being the same the way it is, and with the side deck being more revamped. This could potentially top locals. It could even win YCS for all we know, which I will be talking about YCS Pasadena in next Friday's episode of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel, you guys want more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be in the description below. And if you guys have any fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.